Welcome everyone. I hope you're all having a great weekend. I'm Ryan Bell, host of the LookUp UK group, and today I'll be moderating the panel on the power of parents, teen advice for helping kids find digital balance. Please note there'll be around 10 minutes or so available at the end for questions from the audience. So if you do have any questions, please do feel free to add these into the Q&A section on the Hoover platform. So as many of you will know, parents and guardians play a key role in how their child uses digital technology. And so it's really important that they understand the dangers of the digital world, but also that they understand the benefits that it has to offer the youth today. The parents of earlier generations grew up in a world where technology such as social media had little to no presence, yet their children have grown up in a world where this technology has become unavoidable. As tech platforms continue to compete for our attention with their persuasive design, and families have faced a number of pressures as a result of the pandemic, finding that right balance, tech-life balance, for parents and their children has never been harder. So how should we approach this challenge? With me today, we have an amazing panel representing both youth and parent voice here to discuss this very issue. So without further ado, I'd like to pass you over to our panelists to introduce themselves. Celine, would you like to go first?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Celine Bernhardt-Lanier. I am a senior in high school, currently in Barcelona, Spain, and I'm also the CEO of Logoff. And so the Logoff movement is a global movement that's dedicated to promoting the healthy and conscious use of technology. So we have three main missions. One of them, promoting balanced use of technology. 2, supporting more authentic human connection. And 3, advocating for more humanized tech. And I'm also the co-writer of the Dear Parent resource, which is a globally distributed guide for parents about how to support conversations with your teen and foster understanding, empathy, and skills to really foster a healthy conversation about tech use. So I'm so happy to be here today.
Thanks, Celine. Keegan, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Keegan Lee. I am a junior in high school at the Burlington School in Burlington, North Carolina. And I joined the Logoff movement probably sometime around last year. And from then I've been really, really blessed to be a part of this community. And I've written some articles on how to have a healthier relationship with social media and technology. And then I've also written an article on parent influence on child's tech use. And I've also brought digital wellness to my school. I've started a club on that. So we have many students who are becoming more keen to support this mission. And I'm also the director of well-being at Logoff, so we are dedicated to sort of helping all dimensions of well-being and helping to help other people find more wellness within themselves, their mind, body, all of that. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to look to see what other people have to offer. So thank you.
Thanks. And Kerry Jane?
Hello, thank you for inviting me to be part of the panel. I'm Kerry Jane Packman. I am the Executive Director of Programmes, Memberships and Charitable Services of Parentkind. Parentkind is a national charity in the UK, and we give those with a parenting role a voice in education. And we invest substantial resources into representing parent views in their child's learning on a local, regional and national government level. And this is all based on evidence, and parents tell us that they want to be more involved in their child's education. We are also the largest network of PTAs, parent-teacher associations. So the amazing parent groups that fundraise for schools and put a lot of dedication into schools. And we've got around 13,000 members who raise around £120 million a year in the UK.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so to start off the discussion, why do you guys think that it's so hard for teens to unplug from technology? Sure, maybe Celine, would you like to start off?
Yes, that's a loaded question, but I think there are a lot of answers to this. And I think I usually start with just two main ones, which is one is this need for connection. And coming as a teen, there's this just inherent need to be hardwired and to be social as a 14 or 18-year-old. And so looking for community through social media is reducing this FOMO, this fear of missing out in teens. And so ironically, checking our phones both relieves and creates stress, but also just gives us this illusion of being constantly connected. So that's one, is this need to be connected as a teen. And then two is what I call the background work and stuff that makes it so hard to step away from tech and to be disciplined enough as a teenager. And so as many of us know, our devices and social media are hardwired to grab our attention and to keep us scrolling on Instagram, on social media. And so it makes it so frustrating because people under 25, my age, our prefrontal cortex is not yet fully developed. And so these companies are using, the same neural circuitry as cocaine, as slot machines to keep us addicted and to keep us connected and using a dopamine reward loop. So that's all to say that there's persuasive design and that's manipulating our brain vulnerabilities to keep us, scrolling 4 hours instead of our intended 10 minutes a day.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know if Kerry Jane or Keegan, if you had anything to add to that, and maybe anything on in terms of pressures that have amounted due to the current pandemic. Do you think that's made matters worse for teens?
Well, we know from parents that it has increased social media use and their fear of social media. Well, not fear, but their fear of the usage of social media has grown since the pandemic. And I think parents play a crucial role in keeping children safe online and offline. So it's about parents being empowered to with the knowledge and the tools to keep their child's internet use both positive and a safe experience. And throughout the pandemic, parents have been telling us that they're increasingly worried about this. So yeah, I think there is that balance there, but parents need to be given the knowledge and the tools as well, because ultimately parents are the role model for children. So if they are on social media, on their mobiles, on the internet, then they should be setting as much as a positive role model as well.
Thank you. So I guess on a similar kind of line then, where do you think that kind of pressure and that fear of missing out sort of comes from, and why is that so kind of prolific for teens? And what can parents really do to make their kids kind of feel heard and feel good about themselves, so that they don't need to kind of live up to these expectations that they see on social media, and to feel a need to be constantly connected and constantly attached to their devices?
So parents have been, we do a lot of research for the past 7 years on parents' views, and they've consistently told us that they're worried about their child's mental health. And almost half of them reported that they were concerned about the constant pressure of social media, where 20% reported that their child had experienced the issue, and this has gone up 15% from 2020. So that's quite a huge jump in the concern. But they also reported, we didn't just ask whether they were concerned, because generally parents are concerned, but whether they'd experienced the issue as well. And 20% reported that their child had experienced constant engagement with social media, that fear of missing out. And that was also up 15% from 2020. So you can see that the pandemic has exacerbated this, and that perhaps that's a result of lockdown, and that we've had partial school closures and children spending proportionally more time online. But understandably, within the UK, it's a bigger concern for parents in secondary school rather than primary school. I don't think that's surprising. I think the pressures get higher when you get into secondary school. But 48% were concerned about cyberbullying and online abuse, which was up also from the year before. But 17% had actually reported to us that they'd experienced cyberbullying. And that comes along with a whole other range of mental health issues as well, that around depression and like sexual harassment, all of those kind of things are all entwined within. So we've seen a significant increase during the pandemic, but worryingly, those figures were proportionally higher for parents with SEND children, so with special needs or disabilities.
And
yeah, I think, sorry,
Keegan, go ahead.
Thank you. I think everything Carrie Jane said was magnificent. And I think that parents have the responsibility to educate their children, but they also have the responsibility to educate themselves. And I know a lot of parents struggle with their perception of what their children think about them when they say, I need your phone, you're spending too much time on your phone, because not only do the parents not want their children to think that they don't trust them, they also don't want them to think that they're the bad guy and that they are taking them away from the connection that they feel on social media, because the child might think, Mom, you're excluding me from everything that's happening. I'm going to feel even more isolated, So I think that what the children need to understand and what the parents need to say is that I'm helping you form deeper connections, and the connection that you feel on social media is unmatched from the connection you feel when I'm with you right now and I'm talking to you from these physical interactions. And so it's really important that the children understand the issues, because many of them are trapped in the algorithms and the manipulations of it. So just as long as the children are aware and conscious of this, that can really help, as long as the parents are being a good role model and educating their children on this topic.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I want to say that there's also this need for a teen, from a teen's perspective, Keegan and I probably know this too, is that there's this deep desire to be in the know, right? To have this inside scoop. And when we're separated from this, it's really isolating. And so from a teen's perspective, this is our way of like getting in, and this is our sense of identity. And so fear of missing out is really, prevalent in our generation. And so what can you do as a parent? A few steps that I've seen help is just having guidelines and really asking. I see in the chat, there's something about asking the why. This is so true, is asking your teen, why do you do this? And the questions and the reflection and the introspection that you're kind of inciting in your teen really helps them maybe realize, maybe take a step back and say, why am I doing this? Like I have, as Keegan said, I have real relationships that I can foster like physically versus online. And so asking them why and what's the deeper intention behind this. And also from a parent's perspective is show involvement and show that you're interested in what they're doing, and find activities together that you can do offline, so that pull with technology is less important and less compelling, and just find activities to do and explore new hobbies that are out of this technological sphere.
Also, don't portray social media as being the bad guy. The more you portray something as being bad and you shouldn't do it, the more I know when I was a teenager, the more I was told not to do something, the more I wanted to do it. So having that conversation around the why, having an adult conversation around it about why are they engaged, what is the understanding, and treating children like adults in that sense, and then role modeling it comes together. You can create family boundaries, and everybody, don't isolate one member of the family that you're not allowed on social media or you're not allowed to do this. Have the boundaries within the family, that there are certain times of the day when no one's on social media and you all go out and do an activity or you do something different. So, and Yeah, so there's lots of different ways in order to do that, but I think it comes down to, with parents and children, it's about communication more than anything. That's with a lot of things, having that communication.
Oh, thanks. And to follow on from that, just to give one specific example, if you were a parent and your child was, on their devices late at night, whether that be social media or gaming, and it was interfering with their sleep and it was becoming, a kind of recurrent problem that you could see was impacting their well-being, but perhaps their friends are doing something as well. Maybe they're speaking to them. How would you go about approaching that situation?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's about having a good bedtime routine. So putting in a routine, not having phones, putting in a time, like a deadline, a time frame of when they can be on social media, when they can't be on social media, creating a bedroom environment that supports that routine, so that there is books, other things that can be read rather than being on social media. But to be quite honest, if my child was on late at night, I'd take the phone off of them and they wouldn't have the phone, or I'd switch off the internet. And I know they seem a bit like kind of harsh, but try the softly approach, do the routine. But if it comes down to it and it's really disrupting sleep, because sleep is really important for their education and stuff, I'd take it off of them. Probably not the most popular answer.
That's fine. And yeah, just I guess along those lines, how about if the issue is that social media is, intervening with some of their school activities? So say if, they were working at home, but, they kept checking their phone and then that started to have a role. It might be difficult to take it away from them in that situation if they're using that device as part of their schoolwork as well. So I don't know if anyone has any suggestions or strategies to deal with that kind of situation.
Yeah, so I think that especially, I think this goes for people of all ages, we become more, we have the tendency to use things that are conveniently available to us. So like when a phone is right next to us, we have the tendency to grab it, even though we're not necessarily thinking about it. And sometimes, like for me personally, I've realized that even if my phone is out of sight, it's not always out of mind, because I'm still thinking about what other people are doing on my phone and everything. So I think that parents have great power in where the technological device is when children are doing when they're doing activities that are priorities. So I think that parents need to figure out what the best method is for their child to use their phone while doing more productive activities.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think there's also this kind of negative connotation around like boundaries. Sometimes that can be like putting boundaries is not letting your teen breathe. But I think when we're intentional with boundaries, that can really help. So I really believe in screen-free areas. So whether that's screen-free locations, placing, hey, when we're in the dining room, there are no screens in this place. So when we're designating areas that are reserved for maybe promoting, conversations in the family, it can really promote this face-to-face interaction. And then plan screen-free moments, right? So determine appropriate times to kind of disconnect, whether that's between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. And I think having a routine that's established in a teen's life can increase consistency, and that can really be implemented in a way that's healthy, and they can kind of keep doing that throughout the year.
I think the other bit to mention on there, you mentioned if it's interfering with their education, it's important to understand what the school's policy is on social media and phones. It's been quite a hot topic in the UK around whether mobile phones should be available in lessons. So we asked parents, we said, should children have their mobile phones in lessons? And the majority, I was quite surprised, were in favour of removing phones from schools, and that their children not having their mobile phones in schools or in lessons. And although that was around the most popular choice, there was that wasn't for them to not have their phone at all. They felt that it was disruptive within lessons, so they felt that it was up to the school to regulate that, and for the school to say that there is that they shouldn't have phones there. But there was also on the other side of that they were concerned about banning phones completely from schools, because there's also the safety element that comes along with that. If children are traveling home and they're traveling quite a way and things like that. But generally, the vast majority of parents were in favour that the school regulates that and there should not be mobile phones in schools. So if you know that that is the case within your school, you can also support that through the home learning as well, and using that of saying, well, you don't have it in lessons, let's trial this at home, and seeing how you can bring some of the school practice into the home life.
Thank you. So maybe more of a general question then. How do we, or how can we motivate our peers, or if we're parents, our students, to act differently and to find balance around tech without without kind of feeling like that we're taking things away from our children, or pushing boundaries? How can we kind of empower them to make that change and convince them of the positives of a healthy tech life balance?
I think it really comes down to education and advocacy, as well as having a community that thinks the same way, because I feel like that when more people are educated within a certain environment, and when they know the issues that are related to technology, it will most likely, hopefully, create a domino effect for other people, because they see these others that are making a difference, and these others that are being productive with their relationship with technology, that they will want to do the same thing. So I think that the more people we can educate, and the more people we can advocate for, the more people we can create this, the more people that we can help, I think that will really make a difference, because having a community that thinks the same way will enable other people to think the same way as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think for parents, if parents are watching, like, how do I deal with my teen who's just not getting off their device? One thing that's really hard is support. I think a lot of teens just want support, and that's not very explicit for a lot of parents. And so when it comes to young adults or teens, it's really important to mentor and not monitor. And so this is kind of having a more consultant, like, how can I help you in this process? And sharing with your teen, listen, this is really, frustrating for me because I'm seeing how this is affecting you. I want to find agreements together about how we can, limit your screen use and find other activities that can be much more positive for you. And so kind of approaching your teen with more of a very supportive approach, I think, and can be helpful for them as well. And then, of course, one thing that I think we forget a lot, because it's always what can adults do for teens, but adults, what can you do for yourself, is practice what you preach. So if you yourself are using your tech, 8 hours a day, and you're just, scrolling on news, maybe it's not Instagram, maybe you're not communicating with friends, but you're using your device nonetheless, this is where you also have to change your own habits and be an example for your teen to follow. So it's really hard to tell your teen, get off your phone, look what's happening to you, when adults, in the metro, in the subway, I'm seeing them attached to their screen. So that's one point to change as well. And then last thing is just making screen time conversations very normal, a place where you can share with your teen about what's best, and sharing your thoughts without feeling like they're going to be shut down. And so this doesn't mean you agree with us, but also putting aside your judgment and your preconceptions about what we're doing on screens, and just have a comfortable conversation where you can share your thoughts and your teen can share their own perspective with how technology is helping them and where they need help.
Yeah, and I'd add to that is, as a parent, go out and build your confidence with your knowledge and the tools that are out there. So, and one of the best ways of doing that is talking to other parents and seeing what they're doing, especially if there's a peer-to-peer element. If there's a number of parents talking to each other and they're all sticking to the same boundaries, that is a lot easier in order to do that. I feel that it's tough for parents. It really is. Like when I was younger, there was a 9 p.m. watershed on the TV. You're probably looking at me going, what are you talking about? But anything after 9 p.m., the parents knew that it wasn't suitable for their children to watch. And now you have to understand the guidance so much more around, is it a 15? Is it an 18? Is this appropriate for my child? So really arm yourself with that knowledge of, is this appropriate for my child? If you're not getting the information that you need from the necessary sites or anything, talk to other parents, because other parents will have tried to do the same thing as you, and you can all support each other. But in addition to that, talk to the school, see what they're doing, what is their policies, what are their practices. And the parent kind, we offer a lot of support for parents, and we're always signposting to different sites where you can get that information. But don't feel that you're alone in this. There is that guidance out there to support it. You just might have to go hunting for it a little bit.
Okay, I think we'll have one final question, and then we'll move on to the Q&A, because I think there's a couple questions that have come through. So just to finish off then, I'd like to know what everyone's hopes for the future are. Maybe Celine, if you'd like to start off.
Yes, another big question. I think there are different dimensions. From a teen perspective, I think I want to help teens, and I want teens to find their own awareness about their tech habits. I think once you're aware about how am I using tech, why am I using it, and what can I do to maybe find more balance, those questions are super important. And so I think when teens can have that awareness and then kind of bring that awareness to advocacy or agency or changing their own habits and how they perceive their tech devices, that's really important. And then I think from a more big tech company, perspective, a lot of the work we can't do. I think we should be humanizing our platforms to align with our own core values as human beings in a way that unites us and doesn't distract or divide us. And so I think big tech companies like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat should have their mission be creating authentic connection and celebrating, what unites us, and having their platforms be for better impact and more positive change in the world, which is very broad, but those are some hopes.
I think for us at Parent Kind, it's to build parents' confidence that they have the skills and the knowledge and the tools that they can make the decisions that is appropriate for their dynamics and their families in that. And on the other side of that is to represent a parent voice, so that when there are things that are causing concern, like mental health, the use of social media, that we are representing that to regional and national governments in order to say you need to do something about that. And that's been, that journey has started to happen in the UK. There's currently consultation out on the online safety bill, which we're submitting parents' views across to that. I don't think that's going to solve everything, but at least it's a start, and parents are being part of that solution as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with everyone. My hope is that people become less addicted to social media and the issues that relate to social media, like comparison and digital overload. But I think the biggest thing for me is I hope people don't become so infatuated with the with the fake connections they receive on social media, that they become blind to the true harmonizing connections they receive when we're truly together. So I think that this change, it's not going to happen overnight, but I think that small incremental differences lead to huge change in a big direction. So that's my hope.
Okay, thanks. Let's jump over to some of the Q&A here then. So I've got a question from Disha. What are some factors that can affect a kid using social media?
I think the biggest factor is their mental health and well-being. That's one of the factors. That's very broad, mental health and well-being. But what we have seen an increase in is on cyberbullying and online abuse, which I just think in today's society is just, it's not just with children, adults get a lot of it as well with the trolling. It's just wrong, and shouldn't happen. So I think that is one of the main things, but there are ways of, I think, having a positive conversation around how you can support mental health and well-being, supporting the resilience of your child, about how can they become more resilient and not to take everything so personally. And also we encourage parents to work very closely with the school as well, and they will have support services there in order to do that. Yeah, I'll let Celine and Keegan.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the mental health aspect, of course, living through this and going to school every day, and those 7 hours, I'm entering the classroom and I'm seeing kids so just pulled by their phones. And so I think mental health is really important. And another thing is just the communication. And we're talking about that a lot today. It's just this feeling that social media and Instagram, Snapchat, they do not promote honest or trusting conversations or nuanced, like critical thinking. And that's something that I've really lacked, is this vulnerability that comes from sending pictures or connecting online. And so I think that's a big issue. And of course, comparing ourselves to this idealized view of someone online that doesn't at all represent reality. And I would say it just decreases face-to-face communication skills. And to be a little bit more nuanced, of course, there's beauty in social media, supporting personal growth and creativity. And I see it a lot of the LGBTQ plus community, how it's supporting and giving them a voice and a platform to really, share their experience. But I do think communication is so important for teens. And when that isn't really valued, or it doesn't increase, this face-to-face communication, that's so important, that's when it becomes a big issue.
Yeah, so I agree. I think there are so many different there are so many different things that affect a person on social media, relating to the brain, relating to their perception of self. And I think that with these algorithms that are in social media, they really enforce people to become so trapped. And I think that with perception of self, people have these ongoing tendencies to compare themselves with other people. And that is most of the time subconscious, and they don't even know that they're doing it, which is an issue. And then it also, I think, affects creativity, like Celine said, and communication, all of these things. But the good thing is that our brains are malleable. So these things can change if we become aware of these issues, which is a good thing.
And another question from Disha as well. In what ways might worried parents influence the mindset of teens today, and what positive steps forward can we make?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? You just cut out at the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So in what ways might worried parents influence the mindset of teens today, and what positive steps forward can we make?
I think we say, and we've already said this, the most positive step is to practice what you preach, is to be that role model. I'm listening to Celine and Keegan, and I'm thinking, I'm on here saying, yes, put boundaries in and things like that, but I'm not a good role model for it at all. So why would I expect my children, my nieces and nephews, to do anything different? The parents are the first educators of their children, and continue to educate them and influence them throughout their whole life. And if that is one thing that you take away from this, of just, if you're going to say that there's no screen time, then it's no screen time for everybody. It's not just for one person. Do you need to be on your phone? Maybe read a newspaper rather than read the news on the thing. There's all these different things but it is about changing your own habits first, because you can't expect anybody to do anything different if you don't change your own habits.
Yeah, and I think so that's one aspect, is the support. And then there's also another one that's just the respect, mutual respect. This is really hard because, of course, adults, there's this power dynamic, but I think when you're at the same level as your child and you're actually wanting to understand how it's impacting them and what you can do to help, not, enforce, but help your child find balance. And so I think mutual respect just allows room for discussion, and appreciate that we might also have insights in creative ideas that maybe parents don't consider. And conversation is all about building that relationship and those bridges in between parent and teens. And this is like a work in progress. So it's all about collaboration. And it's really hard for parents to come in and say, this is what I'm reinforcing, and I'm gonna, make this part of your routine. Rather coming in and saying, how can we make this work for you? It needs to work for both of us. And it'll be rules that we'll both abide by. So having that mutual respect, and then also understanding where your teen is coming from and how their phone is part of their identity, and just understanding that part, which is sometimes hard for parents coming from a different generation. But I think those are first important steps.
Yeah, so there obviously is no law for when a child should get a phone, like there is for when we're allowed to have alcohol or stuff like that. Parents are the primary determinant to how a child uses technology. And so when it comes down to that, I think listening to the child, allowing them to feel like they are being heard and that their feelings are valid, is really important, because they need that positive reinforcement. They need that feeling of belongingness and love. So I think that allowing the child to feel like they are being listened to and they are being heard is really important. And then from there, educating them about the issues, allowing them to know that you are helping them and that you aren't trying to bring them away from their friends, or you're not trying to make them feel excluded, that you're helping them feel like that this isn't the way we've evolved. We've evolved to feel love. We've evolved to feel wanted, but we haven't evolved to be reminded of it every 5 seconds, which is what social media does.
Mm-hmm. And I think one other thing I'll point out is there's also the conversations that we can have, but there's also just persuasive design. And this is where parents and teams can talk about what are the best rules and all. But this is where also reform and tech reform has to come in. And this is not the panel for today, but just saying that there's just like a lot going on behind the scenes. And so having sympathy and understanding that your teen has a device that's being engineered to grab their attention. And so a lot is not just, oh, they're not disciplined to step back. No, it's that, oh my gosh, the device itself has to be changed so that my teen can use this in a way that promotes their own self-realization or actualization. And there's just a lot we can't do. And so having that understanding and coming in with that knowledge, as Carrie Jane was saying, is really important to starting a conversation.
Yeah, there is certain guidelines out there for social media platforms. They do enforce them. You're not allowed, I think it's 13 for a Facebook page and things like that. And I'm not sure everybody's fully aware of that you have to be a certain age. I think there is certain things that tech platforms could do in order to strengthen that. But parents, as I say, need to strengthen their knowledge around all of this. And that those guidelines are put in for a reason. And I'm not saying they're the best guidelines and stuff, but if you stick to those kind of guidelines, initially, at least you have some kind of basis, some kind of platform that you can work from.
We've got a couple minutes left. I think we've got time for one more question and then some closing remarks. So a question from Susan. Curious if you see a tug of war between parents and youth, and does this depend on what age a child is?
I think that's a very broad question. I fought with my parents throughout about different things. I think at different times as you grow up, you have different arguments and different stands that you want to take with your parents, where you're becoming yourself and your personality is growing and you're stating your independence as you go through. For me, it comes down to my parents were the best communicators. They were great at sitting us down and having that conversation, but it come alongside kind of there were boundaries. And if we went over the boundaries, then actually that we knew what the consequences were from the outset, that if we went over those. So I think as children go into secondary school, what we find within parent kind is it all changes again. So there's different challenges for when children go into primary school to when they go into secondary school, and it's just constantly evolving. But Celine and Keegan might have a different view on that.
Yes, that's a good question. I actually think it doesn't matter at all what the age of the child is. I just think it's the experience of the parent. What is their character? How do they approach the situation? I was working last year, and I think some parent or some news article I read said that discussions around technology have the power to gain or decay trust. And I think this is so true, is that how we approach the situation. So everyone listening, if there's one takeaway, it's learning how to create this conversation with your teen. Is how am I going to approach a situation where I listen with respect, with love, with validation, with empathy, understanding, and taking away things for yourself about how you can improve your parenting skills around technology. So I don't think age matters. I think it's how, as parents, how are you integrating your own rules, and how are you establishing a better relationship with your teen to talk about this?
Do you have anything you'd like to add, Keegan?
I think that everybody pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think, yeah, I totally agree. I think that the issues, it doesn't matter what age you are, the issues of social media, they're going to be consistent. Everybody feels stress on social media. Everybody feels comparison, jealousy. So I definitely agree with Celine and Carrie Jane that it really comes down to the parenting approach and how they make the child feel with their relationship with technology. So yeah, I think that everybody hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, thank you, panelists. Some really interesting discussions and perspectives, both from youth and from the parent side, from Carrie Jane. I think there's, definitely a lot of takeaways and some hopes for the future. And I'm optimistic that, we are moving in the right direction. So, thanks for that. And thanks for the questions as well.
Thank you.